Coming up on Unwritten.
Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Lao Tzu, the parallel sayings. Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I haven't read it.
But to me, they describe God in a way that's not religious, not dogmatic. And it's like when you go through that book and you see all the parallel sayings, it's like, okay, this is what God is, maybe. It's like they're all speaking about the same thing. And we just have different labels to put them in. But not any one label of religion is necessarily right or wrong. We're just all speaking about the same thing in different ways. It's kind of like that elephant analogy that you were speaking of.
You know, there's this one metaphor for faith that people sometimes use, like there's a big elephant and it's a bunch of blind people and they all can touch different parts, but it's the same elephant. And I sort of, to me, the faith that I have right now, that I try to have right now, is that God is possibly speaking to all of us all the time. God is possibly speaking to me. And I really can only hear through the lens of my own experience.
Can you please tell me a little bit about who you are and what are you going to do with your wildly precious life?
Whoa, throwing some Mary Oliver at me right out the gate. Right out the gate. Well, since you put it that way, since you folded my mortality into the question, I'll give you the whole spiel. The central pillar of who I have become started when I was very young, probably about 4 years old, and I started having panic attacks about dying. I would lay in bed at night as a little kid and like beat my head against the mattress and try to imagine what it would be like to cease to exist and panic. And that set the stage for everything, because I also was raised in a home where we didn't have religion or spirituality. And we never talked about that sort of thing. And so I just sort of inferred that the universe was empty, meaningless, etc. And I also absorbed from my environment the idea that religion was wishful thinking, silly and weak. So I became obsessed with science. And it was when I was about 20, working in a laboratory, planning on being a scientist for the rest of my life, when I realized that I had dismissed the most cherished beliefs of 99% of people who had ever existed as stupid without asking them what they thought. So I scrapped my plans to become a scientist. I went to seminary. I didn't become a believer, but I came to appreciate faith. And I've studied that all throughout, but all along I've been obsessed with these questions of meaning and purpose and truth. And today I finally have come to a way of being in the world that feels peaceful to me. I finally found those existential answers I was so desperate for. And it has a lot to do with how I relate to truth and other people and the universe. And it's all about cultivating a sense of openness and trust and releasing outcomes. And what I plan to do with the rest of my wild and precious life, you know, I consider that my calling. I write books. I do philosophy. I'm not terrible at it. I want to help people a lot, empower, liberate, all that stuff. But I've also learned that I think the most impactful thing I can do is live a really kind, small life. I have close relationships with my neighbors. I'm not on social media except for my job. And I volunteer at my VA. You know, I keep my world. I just try to live beautifully, paying attention to the moment. And I actually think that may be what Mary Oliver was suggesting to us with that poem anyway, was about attentiveness to the world around you. Maybe not, but I read a lot of that to Mary Oliver's poems.
Yeah, I dabble in poem. I dabble in poem myself.
Yeah, I know you do because you asked me that question.
I'm actually that's like the first book I want to write is a poetry book, a collection of 100 poems that are inspired by faith, uh, spirituality, um, life, all of that stuff.
Cool. Well, I happen to know somebody who's deeply in the biz. So
What do you
hit me up.
mean?
Hit me up if you got questions. Sorry. Yeah. So I hadn't mentioned this. Here's maybe something you don't know about me. So I have published a couple books,
Mm-hmm.
and after that was finishing my PhD. I do have a PhD in religion and philosophy. After I finished my PhD, I knew that I wanted to be helping people with my own ideas, but I was arriving at this point of radical humility about my ideas. Like, they're good, I think, but who am I to say that I'm actually the correct one about what's best for us as individuals or a society?
Yeah.
So I started helping other people write their books. And
Ah,
yeah, so I have a lot of ghostwriting experience. And I mean, a lot is a relative term, some. And I happen to, yeah, know a lot about writing and publishing books from that.
well, we can speak about that
Yeah.
offline.
Sure.
um, but yeah, you mentioned something about having the answers. Something that I am struggling with right now because I also consider myself a truth seeker, but I grew up differently than you. You said you grew up in a more secular household. I grew up in a more purely faith, Catholic, going to church every Sunday. And then by the time I was a teenager, I started questioning everything. Like, how do you know this is the right way? And then even to this very day, some of my family, uh, I just I struggle with the dogmatism part of it, where it's like part of you, like there's nothing wrong with it. Like if everybody has a different, like this is my belief. You know, where do beliefs come from, right? Like it's a feeling that you feel, you think and feel to be true. It's like this is my belief, and everybody has
Hmm.
different beliefs. But I think my problem with dogmatism in any religion, um, but specifically Christianity, is like people reach a point where maybe it's a coping mechanism, like psychologically speaking. Um, like I just have to fall back on something to feel better, kind of way. But my the struggle I'm struggling with right now is like, how do you know that this is the only way, you know? And then people always, Christians give that quote, you know, through me this is the way, this is the only way, the path. But the way I perceive that is he said it as a symbol of hope, not because Christianity was made like 300 years, or they wrote the Bible or whatever, 300 years, the Nicene Council or whatever. Um, so yeah, how do how do you, I don't even know what the
Well,
question was.
actually, well, actually,
Yeah.
so this has been my big question, and it's a big. This is where I get my existential sanity from,
Mm-hmm,
and a part of what I offer people, which is, all right. So I think we actually have pretty little control over what we believe.
mm-hmm,
Right? You were born into the context you were born in. I was born into the one I was born in. We'd been born in medieval villages. We'd think something different. We'd been born in North Korea. We definitely think something different, right? Like the possibilities for what we can believe is fully given to us by the environments into which we are born. And I think we have
mm-hmm,
I do think we have some free will, but so much of what we end up believing through our lives is a response to our environments, right?
mm-hmm.
That's just a fact. And for me, like you'll notice, I had a Substack essay come out. I published it right before we hopped on the call, talking about um, why certainty feels so good,
Yeah, I think I've seen that
and
one.
why people, oh, thank you, and why people fall into it so easily. And we do, because I think it makes us feel safe. It makes it feel like the world is steady. We cling to what we knew before. And that's what, I mean, people do that in religions, they do it in politics, they do it everywhere. My personal solution is accepting that I'm just one of 8 billion people. And all I can do is contribute to others and learn from others.
Mm-hmm.
For whatever reason, I was born into the slice of existence I was born into, and other people were in theirs. There's this
Mm-hmm.
one metaphor for faith that people sometimes use, like there's a big elephant and it's a bunch of blind people and they all can touch different parts, but it's the same elephant.
Oh
And I
yeah.
sort of, yeah, and I sort of, to me, the faith that I have right
Mm-hmm.
now, that I try to have right now, is that God is possibly speaking to all of us all the time. God is possibly speaking to me. And I really can only hear through the lens of my own experience. And
Mm-hmm.
so I'm going to tell people what I've experienced. And I think it's legitimate that other people share what they learned too.
Mm-hmm.
If they grew up with an evangelical interpretation of the Bible, cool. Maybe that's right. What can I learn from listening to that? Maybe
Yeah.
that's a cool piece of the puzzle. Like, we're all on the way together, and it's okay that that I have the beliefs that I have, so long as I'm trying to help others and listening to others also on the way. Does that how does that sound to you? Does it sound sane? Does it sound like it works?
You
What are the holes?
you're going crazy. Nah, I'm just kidding. Um,
Thanks.
no, yeah, something for me, I've always just questioned everything. Like, but why do you think that way? Why do you believe that? Why?
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and that's why I said that's something I'm struggling, grappling right now. And I think the solution to that is having an open mind. And I call it transcending judgment. Not in
Mm.
like a egoistic way, but just listening without like, well, you're immediately wrong, or why would you think that, or judging somebody for their uh, perspective in life.
Yeah, I like that a lot. I sometimes I think, okay, so what does it mean to love? I think because I think if any of us agree on something, it's that we are called to be loving.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the most important thing we can do is pause in any moment and get curious about why we're feeling the way we're feeling and why other people are feeling the way they're feeling. Not judging, not getting angry, not being upset. Those are the kinds of things that erect barriers and also imply a superiority or a sense of dominance.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm right, you're wrong. Clearly, I have all the answers. I
Yeah.
remember a moment when I was in high school in the car, and I realized that there were then 7, now 8 billion people on the planet. And every single one thinks they're right about everything. Every single one. And that's only because we can only draw the conclusions that we draw from our context. We're all so good at reasoning, given the limitations that we all have, that we've all always had. We just do our best in our own locations. And so I talk about love because I think love is the ability, the willingness, the choice to do something, to exert effort for other people or for ourselves And in that pause, like, it's hard to not jump to conclusions because jumping to conclusions makes us feel safe, and justified and righteous. But if you pause and just get curious and try to see and honor the other person, like, I think that that's all we can do. And really the only path to finding solutions to, our conflicts and our disagreements about what we think is right
It's love.
is, is listening, and honoring, not just paying lip service to listening, but,
Yeah.
trying to
Like
really
on the
understand people.
obligation.
Yeah. Or, like a lot of people talk about being open-minded, but how much do they really consider what other people say? You know?
Yeah.
Um, and that's not to say that I'm necessarily better at it than anybody else, but I think, just really trying to set our own motivations aside and knowing that we can't
Yeah,
is the best we can do.
I think that's a big part of the ego, and that certainty aspect. It's what um, gives us a sense of identity, and anything that conflicts with that sense of identity, we tend to, like a robot, get like error, like what is going on here? Like I need something to be certain about. So when that's questioned, when our certainties and beliefs are questioned, I think that's why we get a lot of pushback.
Yeah, one of my favorite theories or models is called the meaning maintenance model.
Hmm.
Is developed by a group of experimental psychologists. And, there's all these hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of studies in psychology that show how we compensate for the threat of challenge to our beliefs, right? So when people say we're wrong, like, how do we respond to that? And these psychologists said they offered 5 A's. Let's see if I can remember all of them off the top of my head.
Hmm.
We assimilate, we abstract meaning around it, we accommodate. Oh man, I'm gonna miss the other ones. They're a little. Anyway, the point is, like, when we encounter beliefs that we are designed to always make sense, and when we encounter things in the world that problematize that sense, it gets deeply uncomfortable. And the studies are really cool because this sense of absurdity is what they call it. This feeling of something's not quite right. It can come from things like being reminded that you're going to die. And it can come from things like a researcher. So in one study, they had 2 different researchers who looked similar, wear the same clothing and swap places. And nobody knew, but everybody like felt a little weird, or they're in one study, like the diamonds in a deck of cards was black or something like that, or the spades were red, and people didn't really notice, but they felt kind of weird. And reading absurdist short stories like by Kafka. But what was really interesting in the studies is that when people were told ahead of
Hmm.
time that they were going to read an absurdist story, it didn't give them that feeling of disorientation that the people who just read the story off the bat got. And so what these psychologists have said is that, like, we start making sense the moment we roll out of mom, and that sense making, they call it meaning maintenance. We create and we maintain our meaning over and over. And when we encounter things that challenge us, we have to make sense of it. And
Mm.
often, if we can't really make sense of it right away, we'll actually become more certain about other of our beliefs. So it's almost like an actual building with foundations or something, or pillars.
Hmm.
And when one of them weakens, we strengthen another.
Mm.
And our identity is a huge part of this, like you said, because it's our understanding of who we are.
Hmm.
And a brilliant person His name is Rich Diviney. He's a retired Navy SEAL commander. He's got a beautiful book called Masters of Uncertainty. He has this, I learned from him that our identity is social, right? It's always about the role we play with other people. It's how we understand how we fit into the world. And belonging with other people is like the most important thing. I think it's more important than food and water, because if you don't have other people, how easily are you going to get food and water? Especially as an infant, it's impossible. You'll die. So when these things get challenged, we feel so unsafe
Mm-hmm.
ultimately. And what do we do? You know, we retreat to the things that have held us steady before, whether that's our identity or belief in a certain God or belief in a certain politician, belonging to a certain group, like all this stuff. Um, all of which is to say, I like the meaning maintenance model. And I think it's all about how we just roll through life, making sense of stuff and keeping ourselves safe at the same time.
Mm, yeah.
Thoughts?
I think safety is a big one. Well, that reminded me of another experiment that I had just read about um, in psychology. You probably heard of it, the Milgram experiment.
I know the name. What did they do?
So the Milgram experiment was testing people's obedience. Um,
Oh, the science, the lab coats and the pain and stuff.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead and describe it for
And it
your
was
listeners.
it was testing um, people's ability to just be obedient uh, against their beliefs, against their what they thought was their morality. Um, and he started it because it was a trial of the Nazi war criminal Adolf Eichmann, um, who, among other beings, was charged with ordering deaths of millions of Jews. Eichmann's defense. So this is why he even conducted this experiments, because Eichmann's defense was he was just following instructions. So he was killing millions of Jews and in charge of killing millions of Jews purely just because that's what he was told. And basically, the end of the experiment was 65% of people that were uh, told to keep shocking people, they uh, gave them the highest voltage of shock. Um,
I think it's interesting that you used the language ability to be obedient.
mm,
Um, it was interesting. I've never heard it phrased that way before. Because people would normally cast it in a negative light, you know, like our slavery to obedience or something.
mm.
Um, and I don't know, maybe that suggests something about, um, well, I don't know, but we definitely, a lot of what I've heard about this experiment
Mhm.
is about cultural authority and how, you know, there's a lot of questions. They didn't keep doing experiments like this because they seemed unethical, right? So we don't have a lot of data concerning what would happen if the conditions were changed, right? But like, what if that person weren't wearing a lab coat, right? So in the experiment, like the person was wearing a lab coat and they were saying, you must press this.
Well,
Trust
yeah, that's
me.
kind of
You must.
what happened. So there was three. It was the experimenter, the teacher, and the student. The students were actors, just pretending. It wasn't a real shock. The only real shock in the experiment was to the people being studied, which were they thought they were going to be in a student teacher position, but they were all made teachers to actually administer the shock. and that was the only real shock to give him like some sort of proof, and it was just a 15-volt like little mini like zap.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I'll just read it so people can understand real quick.
Hmm.
So yeah, out of 100 people, they thought only three people, they had estimated only three people would administer the maximum shock level, but surprisingly 65% of people administered the maximum shock level, while people showed signs of internal struggle like groaning, nervous laughter, trembling, screaming. Most of them just obeyed the experimenter's quest, as he said, please just continue with the experiment, please just continue with the experiment. Milgram asked the participants to rate how painful they believed the shocks actually were, and they rated it as extremely painful. Milgram even found that the participants, in an effort to justify their behavior, actually devalued the students during the experiment, saying the students were just dumb that they kept taking the shock. Milgram was able to successfully show that under certain circumstances, everyday normal people have the capability to cause immense pain and suffering. Milgram was able to explain such high levels of obedience in the following ways conducted by the study. Compliance was increased because the physical presence of an authority figure, the experimenter. Many participants believed that it was safe because it was simply sponsored by Yale University. The selection process, who would be teacher and student, they thought was random, but they were all the teacher. It was assumed that the experimenter was competent and an expert in his field, and the participants told that the shocks would not be dangerous or life threatening. So it just
Yeah,
shows
I mean,
people's like ability, you know,
it does, and
morality.
I, well, I think I would have been in the 65%. I mean, statistics say probably. You know what? And there's no way to know how any of us would behave in any circumstance until we're in it, right? But we definitely we are social beings
Hmm.
who live in hierarchies, and right now, today, to some degree or another, we are choosing who we take as authoritative, right? And I mean, I don't know how much do we ever choose anything,
Democracy.
because yeah. Well, it's just our ability. Humans have never been perfectly free reasoners, right? I think you said beliefs are felt convictions. They are
Hmm.
like,
Hmm.
there, to me, there's no dividing between thinking and feeling.
You don't think so?
We can loosely partition them, I think, but
Well, I
like,
think, I think, I think some people can like intellectually understand something, but not feel the same about it.
mm,
Maybe.
yeah. So I mean, to me, we can we can do emotional work so that we reason less impulsively. We become less hot-headed if we heal ourselves and practice mindfulness and release attachment to outcomes, all that kind of stuff. Um, it's really important. I think it's the most important thing we can do, is this emotional work to inhabit space with people who are different from us, essentially.
Oh yeah.
Um, like I think we can become less emotional reasoners, but we can never have a belief or encounter belief without having a sense for it, and for when we consider an idea right, it's also another way we could talk about it. And sometimes another way we do talk about it is saying, I like that idea.
Hmm.
I like that idea. I have an affinity for that idea. When I read an argument with beliefs in it that I disagree with, I start to feel distaste and maybe fear, maybe dislike, definitely some sort of aversion. And it's instinctive, right? When I say the phrase, eat the rich, do you have like an immediate sense for how you feel about that statement? I think we all
The
do
rich.
one way or
What
another.
does that
I know
even
it's something
mean?
people say sometimes. Um, it means it's unethical to be rich, and
uh
it's definitely like a slogan of progressive
like the
allied.
equality gap, the
Yeah,
income
like,
equality gap.
exactly. Um, and everything is charged, right? If somebody says, "Well, I think a woman always needs to have the right to choose." Like, we all know what that means, and you have a feel we
Mhm.
all have feelings about it instantly because we have all of these beliefs, all these convictions. But William James, one of my favorite philosophers, he wrote this beautiful essay in the late 1800s called The Sentiments of Rationality. The Sentiment of Rationality. And he said, rationality, we like to think that this is my phrasing, not his,
Mhm.
that it's adherence to an objective standard. But what it actually is coherence with our present beliefs. Right? When I encounter an idea that I think is correct, it's because it works with the beliefs I already have. Agree, disagree? I mean, that's sort of how I
Is it
how I
kind of like the
see.
confirmation bias?
Yeah, it's just why does you mentioned before, like, why does anybody believe what they believe? And I think we welcome beliefs that work with what we presently believe, and it doesn't mean that we can't be open and we can't change our minds and we can't entertain other people who are different from us with curiosity and compassion. But we have like instinctive felt senses, and it's all just because I do think it's because our thinking is the language my doctoral supervisor used, Donovan Schaefer, is guided by feeling. I
Mhm.
think of it as like um, thinking propels us in a direction, but our feeling is what orients us. It's what determines what direction we'll move in. Do I like that idea? Do I not like that idea? I can use my
Yeah.
intellect to get towards it or away from it. Um,
Yeah,
and this is, go ahead.
I think well, that just reminded me of
Hmm.
when you have a goal, for example, and whether you believe you can accomplish it or not.
That is something that William James talked about a lot, um, because he said there are some beliefs that get confirmed through choosing to believe them. And that's one of them. And that he sort of talked about that, like faith, you know, um, the realization of a thing is in the moment of choosing to believe it. And it's definitely true. Like something that's important to the work that I do is just trying to open people's eyes and mind and heart to the emotional work that our beliefs are doing for us. I we are squishy animal beings that have been made out of feelings and instincts for way, way, way longer than we developed the capacity to think. And why did we develop the capacity to think? Right? Why did that evolve? It evolved because thinking enabled us to
Build.
survive. Yeah, to build, to survive, um, to make ourselves safe, And so I see the feeling of safety as really central in how we end up judging whether beliefs are like quote unquote right or wrong. They're right if they
Yeah.
fit with what works for us, and they're wrong if they threaten what works for us.
Well, how do you think about people well, how what would you say to somebody that is just so closed off, like you'll even see on like dating apps now. It's like
I'm very familiar.
like
Yeah.
if you're not vegan, if you're not
Yeah. Don't talk to me.
woke, if
People's,
you're
yeah.
not religious, if you're not like, there's so many boxes, and it's usually all of the polarizing ones that are like
Hmm.
religion, politics, maybe diet if you're like a vegan activist. Um,
Hmm.
if you're not this,
Or anti-vegan.
yeah, if you're not this, like swipe left or right or whatever. Like how can people start just like you said,
Hmm.
having this openness, not judgmental, um because some people, even like I've heard it said before, like I don't debate my faith, for example. It's like I can't debate my faith, which I agree on, because I think faith is more individual, and some people are meant to be missionaries and spread the word, and some people, I think, uh to me, faith is individual. um but yeah, how can people just start opening up? uh yeah.
That's a great question. I think it's different for everybody. Um, because I think that psychologically, the instinct to close off and shut down is driven by inner unsafety, right? There's a need to stake your ground to keep yourself safe. And I think a lot of people fear doubt and questions in their faith because they're afraid of what's going to happen, right? Am I going to lose my belief in God, which is so important to me? Is God going to be mad at me? That would really suck, right? Like, is my family going to reject me? That would be awful, right? Like, there's a lot of really important stuff there, but psychologically, it's like this thumb on us that says, "Don't question, don't question, don't question." Um, and it's not that's I used faith as an example, but that's just one of them. We have the exact same questions with our political allegiances and our friend groups. Um, and I think, and a lot of people were raised or grew up with negative beliefs about themselves or learned defensive patterns. Um,
Hmm.
for a few examples, um, my father was always like quite attached to his own ideas. Um, And he always said that they were objectively true. A is A was his phrase. Like, the truth is the truth. What I say is the truth. People who ignore this are,
He
dumb.
was dogmatic about it.
Oh, yeah. Um, and over time, and so when I went off to college, I started disagreeing with my dad and fighting with him, picking fights. And I was so mad all the time. And my family was like fraying because dinner always erupted into shouting matches
Mm.
between me and dad. And I realized the problem was me because I was trying to change him. So I stopped and I started just like listening and being alongside, offering from my perspective. And that changed a lot about our interactions. But the most important thing that happened was about 18 months ago, when at the end of a conversation, my father said, "You know what, Steph, I think you might be right. I'm going to have to think about that." And I laughed. I just looked at him. I was like, "What?" And I laughed so hard and I took out my phone and I wrote a note to myself, like, "Don't forget, Dad said you might be right.
What was it?
23rd November 2024." I don't know. It was about immigration or something. And I fell out of my chair laughing. And I was like, "Dad, this is the first time you've ever said that to me, right?" And this is what he said. And I quote, "I'm a gentler guy than I used to be. I'm getting in touch with my softer side."
Mm.
And I think, and that wasn't necessarily on purpose. Like, it was maybe, well, I think it was a little bit, but and then I know another person who's just like, he's got just the biggest, most loving heart. He's 74. And he just like went on a wilderness retreat and realized that when he was 6 years old, he was made to believe that if he didn't have the right beliefs, God was going to condemn him
Smite him.
forever. Yeah, and that was so deeply buried in his psyche that when he was in his mid-70s and wanted to love his best friend who had different political opinions, it was hard for him. And
No,
beautifully, like, he went ahead and did that work.
yeah, that's actually one of my biggest arguments against dogmatic Christianity at a young age, when
Mhm.
it can really mess with your psyche when you think that if you don't obey God, you're going to hell. Uh,
Absolutely.
at a young age, if like you don't do this, you're gonna be in fire and brimstone in the afterlife.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I got a lot of opinions. I got a lot of opinions about faith. I think shame and judgment are part of the fallenness of the church. I
Mm,
think those are things the church is supposed to save us from, not perpetuate. Um, and the I have only lived in the American South for 2 years now. I actually spent most of my adult life living in Europe, where Christianity, in my experiences, and I've always been in really beautiful Christian communities, a lot of intention and deep thought and
mhm,
emotional work.
mhm,
And I've always been in communities where doubt is very welcome in faith.
mm.
And being here, it's pretty surprising to me. And I haven't found a church.
It's like, don't be judgmental, but you're judging everybody that doesn't believe in what you believe.
Yeah. And also, like, there's this idea in Christianity, like, Jesus saves us from
Your sins.
our sin.
Mhm.
But built into that is the idea that you are sinful, right? And so,
From birth.
anytime from birth, and
Yeah.
anytime somebody gets up on the pulpit and says, yeah, I mean, sometimes it's really obvious, like, you must repent because you are sinful. I'm like, wait, didn't God make me like this? Um, Pretty sure God made us all like this.
Oh, yeah.
And I think, to me, like, I do think my vision, my hope for the church, I could be totally wrong about this, obviously, but my hope for the church is that it becomes a place where we become loving and oriented towards God and goodness and one another and beauty and truth with without shame. I think it doesn't I think shame is the most
Yeah.
powerful way that humans have to get people to conform to norms.
Yeah.
And
Because
I
it's
think it I
ostracization. When you feel shameful, you feel like left out of the group. And then
yeah,
you're
and
left just ruminating in it as well. It's like they say, like the frequency levels of energy or whatever, if you believe that
mm,
sort of thing. Shame is the lowest vibrational frequency.
I think it's without question, it's possibly the most powerful feeling, maybe fear, depending on how strong the fear is, but shame definitely, it's huge. It's how power happens in societies. And I think, yeah, I see that as a part of our fallenness. We're I don't think we're shameful because we're fallen. I think we feel shame because of the fallenness of our reality. And the church, I really would like for the church to stop implying that we have anything to be ashamed of. I think
Yeah, a big example of that is whether you're born straight or gay.
absolutely, and I think, I mean, the way that that's handled theologically is like there's a lot of ways to come at it, and some I like more than others. Most I really just, you
I'm
know.
like, you're born.
Um,
Didn't God make you that way? But now, if you don't change your ways, you're going to hell.
mhm. I have a friend who identifies as a celibate gay Christian, and I think he talks about homosexuality in a really beautiful way,
Hmm.
um, about as beautiful as you can with the mindset that it's sinful.
Hmm.
I may be wrong about this, but what he says, his name is David Bennett. Go look him up because he'll say it better than I say it. He's a theologian in Oxford,
Okay.
England. I mean, you don't have to look him up, but if anybody's curious about what I'm saying, and I don't want to get it wrong, but what David says is homosexuality is one way in which people can be fallen, and it happens to be mine. But we're all fallen in different ways, and we're all called to overcome our own particular kinds of sin. And this is
Mm,
my own burden to bear, and other people have their own burdens to bear.
mhm.
And David says, I might be wrong about all this, but I'm taking a chance on it. I'm going to be celibate just in case that's what God wants. And maybe that will change in the future. And I, I think, I think the way David talks about that honors, honors people born that way the same as others. He celebrates his homosexuality. He's like, I am what I am,
Yeah.
and so that's like a way to hold that space. But I think the vast majority of the time, it's
It's shameful.
it's not
Yeah.
held that way. It's shameful.
Yeah.
And something David would say, or any of my Christian friends would say, and most of them are, is take the log out of your own eye, man. Like,
Take the log out of your eye.
um, it's a biblical analogy. Who said, uh, I don't know. I could look it up. It's in the Bible, pretty sure that you got to take the log out of your own eyes before you try to take them out of the eyes of other people. Like, if we're all sinners, we're all sinners. My personal thought is that if God has made us, um, and God is so great, like God has made us the way that we are, like, and even if God gave us that freedom that enabled us to sin, like God gave us that freedom. And if God is participating in how life is happening, God is with us and alongside us. And God can't be the creator and determiner of all, and yet uh, and create us lovingly in his image, and yet have us be like sinful for being that way at the same time. That
Yeah.
doesn't make sense to me personally.
No, yeah,
And
it's, what's the word for it? Um, yeah, it's
it's a
contradictory,
paradox. It's
yeah.
contradictory. Yeah, something I think about a lot is just how powerful shame is. And I think it's really important to get curious about the sources of shame in our lives, and why we believe what we believe. And is shame playing a role? Because to me, when shame is operative in our beliefs, that means we might want to get really, really curious about like why we believe them, and is a part of the reason that I'm in this belief system because I'm being shamed into it. And that doesn't mean it's
No,
necessarily
that's
wrong.
what I was trying to allude to earlier as,
Mm,
like, the coping mechanism, because it's like
yeah.
maybe there's a deep-rooted shame, and this is your only way of however you're raised, or this is your only solution to the
Mm.
problem of feeling shameful. You're coping with this shame in a way that you feel good about, participating in a community that whatever.
Yeah, I think so. And that comes out most obviously in faith, but really in anything. I think a lot of people learn at some point in their lives, often very young, to shame themselves first, or people tell them that they're shameful. But we learn to carry inner shame to save ourselves from being shamed by others, from being excluded. Right? We start pretzeling ourselves into the roles we think we need to play, believing what we need to believe. And then we carry all the shame, and it's so heavy. And so we cling to the groups and the things that signal our
Follow the herd.
identities. And oh yeah, and that's just human. Like, I'm not mad at anybody for doing it, but what I do want to do is invite curiosity. Why do I believe what I believe? And I've had all kinds of allegiances throughout my life. And in retrospect, like a lot of that was just about the story I was telling about who I was. And I prefer nowadays to think about who I am not as like, oh, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, I'm an atheist, I'm a Christian. But like, I'm curious. I'm growth oriented. I'm on the way. You know, that's my favorite. I'm on the way. I know y'all are on the way.
Truth,
Everybody's on the way. It's just whether you want to
truth on the way.
own it. Truth on the, yeah, that's my substack. But I also have this whole metaphysics of the nature of truth and,
Yeah, I love metaphysics.
oh, me too. But it's in my book, it's the last chapter because I know most people don't like it as much as I do.
No, metaphysics is that I think that's the best way that explains God to me personally. It's like the
Do
metaphysical
tell.
God.
Hmm.
Um, you said do tell. It's still something I'm trying to figure out.
All right,
Um,
that's
but
fine. You're on the way,
well,
Thomas.
one of the closest things that I've uh, well, there's a book that I think you should read that I brought, um, but I don't know if you've seen this before.
Jesus, Buddha, Krishna, and Lao Tzu, the parallel sayings. Oh, cool. Yeah, no, I haven't read it.
But to me, they describe God in a way that's not religious, not dogmatic. And it's like when you go
Mm,
through that book and you see all the parallel sayings, it's like, okay, this is what God is, maybe. It's like
mm-hmm.
they're all speaking about the same thing. And we just have different labels to put them in. But not any one label of religion is necessarily right or wrong. We're just all speaking about the same thing in different ways. It's kind of like that elephant uh, analogy that you were speaking of. Um,
Yeah.
and one that I connect with deeply is Taoism because it speaks of the first verse in the Tao is the eternal God Tao cannot be named and it is ineffable. That's literally the
Mm-hmm.
first verse. It's the Tao that could be named is not the Tao because it has no
Yeah.
name. It just is. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
Sorry, for a brief season, I almost became a scholar of Taoism.
Oh wow.
I studied it for a little bit at seminary. Yeah. And I had already, Daoke, Daobuke, Dao, right? I had already studied Mandarin. Um,
uh,
that's the only line of the Tao Te Ching I can recite in Mandarin. Yeah, I think I absolutely agree with you about all that. It makes sense to me that if God created everything, then God is active in everything, including different structures
yeah,
of
some people call
faith
it
and
source,
belief.
some people call it energy. Um,
Yeah, I prefer personally, and this is related to the Taoist in me, I prefer to, it brings me comfort to think that I can't conceive of it
yeah.
because my imagination is so limited. Like I'm a 36-year-old squishy orange
You said
girl
orange.
from the Midwest. I mean, my hair is orange and my lighting is very kind to me, but my face
You
is
don't call
it's
it
just
red.
all orange. I'm pink and or Um my dogs are orange, and so
You're just
anyway, my
drawn to
point
orange.
yeah, I am, but yeah, my point being, it's I'm just me
Mhm.
and I'm just a little human and if we have learned anything from history, it's that we don't know anything.
Mhm.
Every idea that has ever been posed has been discarded or revised. Everyone, even ideas that we think are awesome. Like look at the theory of evolution, right? 1859, Darwin's like, he drops um, the origin of species and
Yeah.
he's like, suck it. And everybody's like, oh my
This
God,
is
this is the
it.
best theory of all
Yeah.
time. This is it. And it was only 100 years later. It was a full 100 years later before we discovered genetics,
Mm.
genes, and And the whole theory of evolution has been completely overhauled to account for this. I mean, Darwin was right, but like now we're more right, right? And that's, I invite people to not seek being correct so much as enhancing their understanding, broadening and
Mm-hmm.
deepening understanding, because, even look at what you thought a year ago, or what newspapers were saying a year ago, or what textbooks were saying a year ago or 10 years ago, right? Like our grasp of what's real evolves. And we've only been doing this for like a couple thousand years at best. And now we've got AI and who knows what's going to
Well,
happen, right?
it
But
still boggles my mind. Uh, I don't know if you ever watched that ancient civilization documentary with Stephen Graham on Netflix.
mm-mm,
Uh,
no.
Basically, he had this theory that um, we had advanced civilizations before the Younger Dryas period, which was the
Hmm.
Great Flood, and how that stacks, because if you look across all of the geological historical stories of that time, they all were speaking about a great flood. Like no matter where you were, there was a great flood,
Mm,
and speaking about it in Japan and in the Americas and Europe, they all had stories speaking about the great flood. Um, Before it happened, before, after, during, they were all speaking about it. Um, so yeah, we've uh, human civilization has lasted before that period, which was like 14,000 years ago. Um, and that like went against so many archaeological scientists theories. They're like, no, it was like we came after the ice age, not before the
mm.
ice age. But those stories, those ancient mythological stories, were created all around the world before that time.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, and humans have been, and the thing is, we always, we think that we're smarter than people used to be, but we're not. We have more information available to us, but our intellect is, the brain
It's
is
like,
the
how
same.
much did our brain really advance since then? Or is it the same
Not much. I
brain?
mean, no, it seems to be the same brain, and we're looking at like 300,000 years ago, right?
Yeah,
And maybe our brains, we actually have less capacity because we're less well nourished, because we live off of Slurpees and
technology.
under fluorescent light. Yeah.
Slurpees.
And the wonders of modern medicine.
Energy drinks and Slurpees.
Sure, whatever. No knock against 7-Eleven. But so yeah, humans before us, I think, were very, very wise, but what they didn't have was tools to record knowledge, so far as we know.
Yeah, it was all verbal. Like they had a tribal storyteller that would pass pass along the
Hmm.
stories.
Yeah, I've done a fair amount of research. For a while, I wanted to write a book about the history of, well, ideas in this light, the history of uncertainty
Hmm.
and certainty, and how it's so hard for us to grasp what life is like in oral cultures,
Hmm.
and how there was a focus on trying to retain knowledge with your brain,
Yeah,
and how important these storytellers were. But also, without writing, you couldn't pass things,
exactly. Like
you
exactly.
couldn't
Yeah,
pass you couldn't give ideas to other
it was the
people
telephone
over
game.
distances. Yeah, and throughout time, right? And so it took a really, really long time for writing to develop. Everybody talks about the advent of agriculture like it was such a big event, but I think about the advent of writing, because writing was how people started being able to coordinate their agriculture, and they could draw
Mm,
pictures of
and the
leaves and then give them to
seasons,
other
and
people.
yeah.
And then as writing got better and better and there became printing, you could standardize, right? And people's knowledge could then start to get aggregated. It used to be so divided. And then people started communicating and agreeing and having the same systems of measurement and the same understanding of different plants. And then we became able to share. But all of this, the writing stuff, the last 5,000 years, maybe 10,000, 5,000 years, and what like a vanishingly tiny amount of time when compared with the 13.7 billion light years of this universe. And I use that for the time measurement, or the space measurement. It's so big and it's been happening for so long. And we're just like these little squishy blobs on a
We're just a
crackly
bleep,
planet.
just a blip.
Yeah. And all of which is to say, my spirituality is a prayerful, I don't know, but it's probably way beyond my imagining. I think imagination is important, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm never going to be able to imagine beyond the confines of my experience. I don't know. Sometimes people have the experience of being gripped by something beyond them. That's how they describe a religious
Oh
experience. I
yeah,
know people who have been like, God gripped me and said these words to me and it changed my whole life.
yeah.
And I'm like, cool. I'm so glad you had that experience. I haven't.
I haven't. Yeah, that's exactly what I say. I'm the same.
I haven't. Not yet. Not yet. I don't want to do psychedelics to find it today. Maybe someday in the future I
That's something
will.
I'm
It's not.
actually wanting to study in psychology.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I actually
Yeah.
had my
It's
first ketamine um experience. It's for a
okay.
documentary I'm creating actually, that speaks about the use of psychedelics for healing trauma specifically, and the benefits, but also some of the like disclaimers. But yeah, it was definitely a journey for sure.
Was
Um,
it just ketamine or was it a cocktail with other
oh
things?
no, no, it was
If you want to talk about it.
no, no. I want to talk about it
Okay.
because I haven't really talking about it a lot.
Mm.
um, it was just like 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Uh, yeah, they give you a by weight injection into your arm,
Mm.
and it takes about 5 minutes to kick in. You're given a blindfold mask, um, and they play journey. They call it journey music, uh, which drastically helps the journey. I feel like if I didn't have that, I wouldn't have had the same experience. But
Mm.
something that I'm intrigued by psychologically is, why did these specific symbols pop up in my psyche, and what do they mean?
Mm.
And what do they mean? And that's what I want to um, understand, because I think throughout ancient history, and if you ever look into like symbolism, that's the only thing that can explain certain things. And for me, I seen a lot of water. Like the first thing I seen was just um, a dancing woman, and it was like her in like psychedelic form, uh, like layers back and forth, and just all these kind of colors. And she was doing like some water dance, and then I felt like I got compressed into this. Um, I felt like I got compressed into the earth, and I became
Mm.
a tree.
Yeah, you did.
And then uh, and then after I became a tree, I went through the whole life of a tree. Like I
Wow.
became a big ass tree, and then I fell down, and then I fell back into the ocean, and then I traveled the entire world as a log floating in the, like, getting thrashed in the ocean and through rivers and valleys, and then I finally landed on a white sand beach, and then I just sat there, and it felt like I sat there alone. But that experience, yeah, it made me question my own mind. Like, why did I see these things specifically? Why did I become a tree of all things?
Mm.
And then everybody's experience is different. Some people just go back to their healing and their trauma, and like, how was I, like, why am I so stuck on this trauma, and how can I heal through it? For me, I didn't have that experience, so
Mm.
yeah.
That's very interesting and a really beautiful journey. Thank you for sharing. I haven't I
Are you
won't
scared of
I won't dare to reflect. I am and I'm not. I went on a psychedelic retreat to witness, kind of similar to your documentary making, but I didn't take anything. But I watched people do a
um,
cocktail with ketamine included, but not the only thing. It was really powerful. They went with like a specific intent
yeah,
to unpack
we
their
had an intent
trauma.
too. Mine was
And
mine was to transcend judgment. That was
do you
it.
feel that you did that as a log?
Yeah. I felt like it was trying to tell me something, like going through the
Mhm.
entire life of a tree. I don't know what kind of tree specifically, but um
You know, someone recently said to me that he thought trees were the perfect example of a calling because
really,
trees, it was a really beautiful idea. Um, we were talking about calling and what it could be. And um, I was arguing that it's being us orienting towards goodness, beauty, and truth as much as we can in our actions.
for a
And
calling.
he said, yeah. And you know, insofar as we inhabit our natural abilities and what it means to be us as beautifully and honestly and kindly as we can, something like that. And
Yeah,
he said he thinks trees were the perfect example of purpose because they just every day they're them and they go through their seasons and they grow to the sunlight and they don't hurt others. They're just
just being.
they're just being their natural beings.
Yeah,
They're just natural beings. And um,
live for
you know,
hundreds of
on the
years.
sometimes
Yeah.
witness civilizations rise and fall. On this question of, so I haven't taken a medicine assisted
Yeah.
journey, but I did once a few weeks ago, actually, uh, go on an intentional shamanic journey.
Oh, how was that?
So with the drums going and then just sort of
I love
trying
that
to,
music. I love when music is introduced. I feel like it helps dramatically.
mm,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, music is really so in a shamanic journey like this, it's the only gateway.
Mhm, mhm,
And with the theory being that it sort of alters your brain waves.
mhm.
And I went into the experience thinking, I'm going on a journey. I'm going to make it happen because I'm so skeptical about all this kind of stuff. And it's so hard for me to let go of my intellect. But I'm just going to really open myself and something that
Allow.
people who do,
Yeah.
yeah, something, allow the imagination,
Mhm.
right? So it's so easy for me looking at what happened for me in my journey, which was so beautiful. I cried for an hour afterwards. Um, it's so easy for me to look at that and say, well, I made it all up. But
Mm.
the pushback to that is, well, there's no such thing. There's always a dialogue with with what's beyond us. Or, you know, it's always you're never alone. And so what happens in the context of your experience when you're inviting things from beyond you is in dialogue with that, whether it's if you want to call it a spirit guide or spirit energy or whatever,
God.
that's there. And yeah, God,
Yeah.
you know, and if when you journey, when you listen to drums, when you take
What
psychedelics,
did
when
it
you
consist of?
pray super
Were you
hard,
doing, like,
my
breath work
journey,
and
oh no, I just laying on the floor listening to drums.
so it was like a meditation kinda?
Yeah, and a lot of people do shamanic journeying this way.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I learned things that were really exactly what I needed to learn in that moment. And I wonder again if my brain, if I just taught myself that, or if it was happening in cahoots with something beyond me. I don't know.
Oh yeah,
Are we alone?
that's what they call gnosis knowledge. You probably heard of that.
Mm,
Gnosis
I
knowledge,
haven't. Mm-mm,
the knowledge that, like, if you look, like, that's what this book speaks about, the gnosis knowledge of all of these,
mm-mm,
and how they aligned. And the gnosis knowledge is the wisdom that comes from within. Like, if you look back at all these
mm,
ancient religions, did somebody teach them this? Like where did they go to school? Did they go to university? Did they just magically, how did they magically have these powerful teachings?
mm.
And that's the gnosis
Yeah.
knowledge that just came to them from who knows where, but people started to believe them and follow them and created entire religions out of them.
Yeah. And I mean, they're not, they're inheritors of tradition as well,
Hmm.
right? And so they also, how did it all get started? You know, something that my doctoral supervisor talked about, that Jane Goodall talked about, was how
Mm.
apes would dance in front of a waterfall. And my supervisor's question was, is that wonder? Is that awe? Why are the apes dancing in front of the waterfall? Um, so is it baked into humanity to always be, cosmically aware and plugged in? And have people been dreaming like this and journeying like this from the beginning? My thought is yes. I don't see why not.
I have this theory that humans are just the universe observing itself, because like we were created from the universe, and now we're just observing the universe.
Yeah, and some people say that's why we exist, or the universe chose to witness itself. Why did the universe choose to witness itself? Lots of lots of good why questions out there. I like the idea. I mean, I think it's
Yeah.
true as well. It's obviously, but so are my dogs, right? And
Mm. Sentient.
all experience. Yeah, yeah.
What do
I
you
actually I like to think of it as like we are experiencers of experience. You know,
experience yourself experience?
existence experiencing. You know,
Yeah.
but who knows? I mean, time is relative. Particles are entangled.
Oh,
Like
have you
it's
seen that
it's
one?
it's
Have you
what,
seen
like a
the
documentary about.
No, have you seen the quantum entangled atom or whatever?
No, I've read about the physics of quantum entanglement.
There
Uh,
was a scientist that uh I think mechanically did it. Like, they forcibly uh quantum entangled atoms,
mhm,
and it
mhm.
it created a yin and yang image.
Oh, really?
Two,
That's
yeah,
very
two,
interesting.
like, they collided it in whatever uh atom collider thing. um and the picture it showed when it was they finally entangled was literally a yin and yang. Like, it had
Oh,
the
that's dope.
dots, the and it and
Yeah,
it
I'm gonna
it begs the
look at that.
question, like, how did the ancient uh I think
Mm,
it originated in Taoism. How did that uh how did they see
mhm.
that? How did they see that symbol of quantum entangled atoms thousands of years ago?
That is a fantastic question. I'm gonna have to look into the link to the research you just mentioned. Oh, it's a beautiful idea and question. Um, Very interesting. I have a fox here on my bookshelf because a fox was my guide on the journey that I went on. It was really important to me. So
Oh, and they're red
as
too.
here's a testament to, um, yeah. Well, this is just the red section of my books. I've got other sections. My books are organized by color.
I
And
think
so this is
red
the
is
blue
calling
section.
to you.
I've often said my soul is orange.
Oh, you don't like red?
um, well, I do think that there's psychology to the colors, and
Yeah.
red is a little, to me, orange is warm but
Red
gentle.
is stronger, yeah.
Yeah, red's a little more aggressive, and
Passionate.
I've got enough aggression, like thrumming in my bones. I don't need more. Um,
You're aggressive.
um, I have I learned a lot of anger as a kid, and I have a
Mm,
lot of, not to be gender normative, but I have a lot of impulse to, like, I was always not very soft around the edges. And kind of intentionally distanced from the soft aspects of femininity, and
mm,
had like a hair trigger for irritability and anger and all that kind of stuff.
mm.
And I've got a lot of passion and discipline, and so I love it, but I like for it to be a little bit softer.
Yeah, I think that's a perfect opportunity to speak about the vulnerability. Uh,
Mm.
your book, it's a new book.
Yeah, so I've it is a new book. I don't know. I have moved the publishing date
Mm,
as um things became complicated with my book agent. I'll just leave it at that. But I'm actually thinking, so I've got a big, like, 100,000 word book about being vulnerable with your intellect, about
yeah.
certainty and uncertainty and truth on the way. And I think it's great. I love it. Um, but recently I just finished writing like a quicker guide, like a handbook. And it's more like 40 pages, not 300. And I'm probably gonna release that really soon. So
Mm,
that's exciting. But I wanna be able to debut the whole philosophy. But I've decided to take a little bit of time on that, and
mhm.
then get out more of a practical, bullet pointed, quick guide sooner. But anyway, intellectual vulnerability, it's very cool, I think.
Well, no, I was gonna. So, what is? Yeah, tell me what it is. What is intellectual vulnerability? What does that mean?
Yeah. So it means being willing to say, I don't know. Right. And it's different from intellectual humility, because intellectual humility to me is pretty weak sauce. It's,
Why?
it's,
What is the difference?
yeah. So I mean, and I've often seen intellectual humility as just sort of like lip service, oh, I'm intellectually humble. Um,
Or like saying you're humble, but really you're so
sure.
egoistic.
It's like, oh, I'm so open minded. Are you?
Yeah,
Because to me, the real growth isn't saying, oh, I might be wrong about
it's
this.
not
What does that
having.
do? That's nothing.
Yeah, to me, being humble is not having to say that you're humble. It's like I
Yeah. And,
shouldn't have to
and, and,
say that.
and what are you doing with that
Mhm,
awareness,
mhm,
right? Like, to me, humility is a statement of, oh, I might be wrong. I'm like, okay, what are you doing about it? And for me,
mhm,
intellectual vulnerability is saying, what am I missing? I know I don't have all the answers. I know my understanding of the world is incomplete. Can you help me identify what I'm
mm,
missing? Help me enrich my understanding. And that is an attitude that I carry in every interaction I have, with every article, with every person. I don't enter conversations thinking, what can I prove? But
how can I be
what can
right?
I learn?
Yeah,
What can I learn? And,
yeah,
and and this applies to people of all levels of education and apparent erudition, or whatever, how much jargon they know or don't, their authority. Every person can be learned from.
mhm,
We all can learn different things, and maybe the only thing you learn is why they believe the earth is flat. But learning that is still learning
Something, yeah,
about
to give you a
them and what it
bigger,
needs to be them.
understanding of the context. Yeah.
Exactly. Um, and a part of this is viewing other people as also equally on the way. And so to me, intellectual vulnerability is saying, well, I don't have all the answers, but it's enacted. It's has this great social potential because it puts us on equal footing and we're no longer at war with one another, trying to dominate intellectually, but walking towards truth together.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest issues with all these debates you see online. You ever watch any of the Jubilee?
I watch zero debates. They're so stressful and nobody
Yeah, it's
learns.
like
I don't
afterwards you
understand.
just feel like drained.
It was war. You were
Yeah.
watching, people do emotional violence to each other because they're not listening, they're not learning, they're trying to
Mhm.
dominate. And like, fine. I don't think that's what our species like particularly needs for to flourish, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's like that's not a solution to just prove that you dominated somebody intellectually. Like, I
But
don't
that's I
know.
mean, but people watch that precisely because they're into this whole dominance
Yeah.
model of we who can prove they're right. But to me, we
Mhm.
need to release this identity and this need to be the right one and instead say, how can I broaden and deepen my understanding?
Mhm.
Let's trade. I want to be
And it goes
correct
both ways,
for,
yeah.
yeah, I want to learn. I don't want to be correct. I want to learn. Those are
Mhm.
two different things to
Yeah,
me.
I wanna understand your perspective.
Yeah. And it's to bring my father back. I grew up a Republican with him, listening to Rush Limbaugh, calling feminists feminazis, all this stuff. And then I went off to liberal college and I came back after one semester wearing a bandana and trying to get my dad to watch Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth. I was vegetarian. And and I was correct. And it was many years later
Mm,
when I softened and stopped trying to change him and decided to just sit alongside him and listen and
yeah.
offer from our own perspectives. When I started listening to him again and I thought, "Oh my god, dad can still teach me stuff."
Mhm.
I when I when I'm exposed to his ideas, I learn. That's a good perspective. That's good pushback. I didn't think of that. And it has stopped. I've got friends all over political and religious spectrums. I love people with lots of different ideas. And I learn from all of them. And I'm continually astounded by what I was overlooking before I listened to that person.
Mm.
Because it's impossible for us to see beyond our own imaginations. It's just literally impossible. The only way we ever learn anything is by rubbing up against people who are different from us. Ever.
And that feels
Like even
unsafe for some people, right? Yeah.
for most people most of the
Yeah.
time. And especially today because that's encouraged because it's profitable. It's
Mm.
it's it's encouraged because when you get outraged and when you're afraid, that's when you spend more time scrolling and clicking. And so
Mm.
we're encouraged now by all of our social and traditional media platforms to have us them thinking and to be afraid and to see other people as the bad guys and us as the good guys. That's what makes us click. And so it's a bit of a scary situation. And that's part of why I feel so who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about everything, but that's the whole point. Like, can we come together and say, who knows? Maybe I'm wrong about everything. To me, that's really the only way to break this problem of polarization. We talk about it like, oh, I need to just force the other people to agree with me. I'm like, no, That's never going to work. The only way I see us being able to come together in love is by admitting that we're equally limited and we honor one another doing their best in their fleshy, squishy, bumbling humanity. Something like that.
Yeah, something well, a reason why I like to study religion of all uh religions
Mm-hmm.
is exactly that, is because I'm curious to really, I don't have to have all the answers, but reach a point where um I don't even like to like transcend ego, transcend judgment, and just simply sit there and listen and be and sit in their shoes and just understand and not try to be right, not try to be wrong. But have you ever heard of the prayer of Saint Francis?
Yes. I love the prayer of St.
So
Francis.
that's something I want to read right now, that I want to share with people, because it's a prayer of a saint that had went on a journey of faith, and you don't have to be Christian, you don't have to be religious to truly live and understand his prayer, which is why I love it so much, because it's like you don't have to, you could be an atheist and still live by this prayer. Um, so it's, Lord, make me an instrument of your peace. Where there's hatred, let me show you love. Where there's injury, pardon. Where there's doubt, faith. Where there's despair, hope. Where there's darkness, light. Where there's sadness, joy. O divine master, grant that I may not so much seek to be consoled as to console, to be understood as to understand, to be loved as to love. For it is in giving that we shall receive, it is in pardoning that we are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born to eternal life.
Yeah.
Amen.
It's the illest. It's the illest. That was really actually, so encountering that poem was really important for
Oh,
me.
really?
Um, mhm, and, for the same reasons, and I love that it's of faith, and
Mm-hmm.
he has a clear faith. Something also that I've thought a lot about. So I had a season where I tried really hard to be Christian.
Oh, you were
Um
you were a try
mhm.
Christian.
Yeah, I tried, it was a few years ago. It was after I
Mm,
already got a PhD in theology, like, after all
mm,
this stuff, and I was like, "Wait, I should just try to have faith. I've never tried before."
mhm,
And I did a lot of stuff. You know, I did a lot of church going, a lot of praying, a lot of scripture reading. I still read a passage every day on the off chance that's how God is speaking to me. And as a part of just showing God my discipline, I'm like, I'm showing up. Um, but something that people often encouraged me to do was to pray for faith,
mm,
pray to believe, you know, pray God to reveal God's self to me. And I did that for a long time. But after a while, it just, I realized it wasn't working. I
mm,
never became more of a Christian believer than a disbeliever.
mhm,
Uh, and I realized a few months ago that the prayer for faith felt wrong to me because I was praying for God to make me feel better, right? Faith was supposed to make me feel better or something,
mhm,
give me clarity, give me certainty, give me a belief I could cling to.
mhm,
And so now I have a little prayer written on a whiteboard it's right in my hallway. I see it a billion times a day. I won't get it perfectly right, but the St. Francis prayer inspired this. It says, "Dear God, if you exist, assuming you exist, if you exist, I'm not going to one way or the other." That's just honest. It's where I am right now. It's honest. Most people tell me the most important thing about prayer is that it's honest.
mm,
God, if you exist, um, please mold me in accordance with your will. I don't know what that is, but that's what I want. And it seems to me like maybe you teach me lessons with pain. And if that's the case, please keep teaching me those lessons with pain, even when I resist. What is there for me to learn? I want to learn it. Please keep teaching me no matter how much I resist it. And please, like, transform me to live with courage and compassion. But I like that because I'm not asking to believe. Maybe God wants me to believe, but maybe God doesn't. Okay. But if God wants to change me, I want that.
Yeah, it just sounds
Um,
like you're being open to it. And in Christianity, I think they call it surrendering to your faith. You surrender to, you're open and you're surrendering to it.
I think
Maybe.
surrender is I think surrender is a really that's a beautiful idea, and I think it's in a lot of the most beautiful religious writings across traditions. I think it's really central in Sufism, the
Hmm.
idea of surrender, right? It's in Islam, it's in Sufism, the mystical branch of Islam. The writings of Rumi and Hafiz and
Yeah.
Rabia.
Yeah.
Who are oh,
I love his poetry.
here's here's one of my favorite books. It's called Love Poems from God,
Oh, I seen that
12
one.
12 Sacred Voices from East and West, translated by Daniel Ladinsky. It's like, it's so dog-eared and written in, and yeah, really, I love it. You know, it's got a lot of that ineffability.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
It's something that so when I stopped trying super hard to be a Christian, what I decided to do was sort of invite more grace and transformation and to follow God through the tug in my gut that felt like home. I think
Mm,
if there's any way to follow God, to find our calling, to live as God intends us, it is to seek genuine peace and joy in homecoming. And I have so far just waited and then said yes when things felt like homecoming to me.
mm.
And wouldn't you know it, but like my life is just so wonderful. And way I have way more peace and fun than I ever did before.
I want to
So
share something I wrote a couple days ago,
yes.
and I want to get your thoughts on it.
Yeah, let's go, Thomas.
Well, this was inspired by listening and reading and rereading um, Man's Search for Meaning. And it made me contemplate this statement. If there is meaning in life and suffering is a part of life, then that must mean there is meaning in suffering. What are your thoughts on that?
In my book, I call suffering the forge of meaning.
Mm,
I couldn't agree with you more. I think Viktor Frankl is one of the greatest luminaries, you know,
yeah.
and something I got a lot of thoughts on this. I think about it a lot. I mean, so a lot of people today say that suffering means life is meaningless. It's the opposite of what you're saying. A lot
Mm,
of people,
like why? Like
you
this
know,
victim mindset. Yeah.
and there's this feeling of injustice, like it can't be this way, it
Or
shouldn't be
like
this
why
way. Why do
me?
we
Yeah.
why me? Why did, suffering, the existence of suffering means that God doesn't exist. A lot of people say that.
Mm,
Um
like why would he create
and
suffering?
exactly.
Yeah.
Um but I think that that's a product of our modern moment. That's so as like our culture became more secular,
Hmm.
we stopped we didn't just stop believing in God, we stopped believing in all the stuff that God does. such as provide a meaningful role for good and evil in our lives, right? And so, there's just such a beautiful book. Do you know Tim Keller?
Mm.
He was a recently passed. He was a Christian, popular theologian guy. He wrote a beautiful book called "Walking with God Through Pain and Suffering." I
Mm.
learned so much from that book. But so like the core argument of the book is all the world's religious traditions see suffering as a part of the meaningfulness of our lives.
Mm-hmm.
In in the quote unquote modern West, we see it the opposite. But for world religions, like it's a part of our fight for evil. It's a part of our ultimate transformation. It's a part of our redemption. It takes place in this cosmic narrative
Mm.
where evil exists and suffering is in some way like us equipping ourselves to handle it, to deal with it, that sort of thing, to understand God, to understand sacredness. I mean, the whole Christian story is the redemption is in the suffering.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it seems to me like the people who have suffered the most have the richest faith
Yeah, there's something odd about
because
that.
they had to. And to
Yeah.
me, it's honest.
Mm-hmm.
It's honest. I think there's this vague entitlement or hope we have in this world, like life shouldn't be this way. We sanitize everything. We act like death doesn't exist. We try to make the world like perfectly safe so nothing bad ever happens. I mean, when COVID happened, everybody completely lost their shit because they didn't have a lot of the
Because there was
conveniences that they were
change.
used to.
Yeah, people don't
Yeah.
do good with
And
change.
no, and especially when we've built this whole edifice that makes us think that like we're in control, but we are not in
There's
control.
something else in
Like
control.
we are not,
Well,
we are
that
contingent
woke people
beings.
up. Uh,
For a while, yeah.
you don't think anymore? They're back.
People forget. We forget, and, that's okay. I think it's very natural. I mean, obviously, we've all been transformed in different ways, and I think a lot of people, like, for the better. Yeah, I wouldn't deny that, but I do think that s s suffering is honest, and it's real. There's there's this idea that older people, like, turn to faith because all their friends are dying and they're getting weak. Some people have that idea.
Mhm,
It's like, "Oh, my friends are dying. I'm gonna die soon. I need to have religion."
mhm, mhm.
But what if older people have religion because they live closer to the honest reality of the human situation, which is that we are frail beings on the edge of death all the time. And when you really look at that, often faith happens. When you're really confronted with that, when you're really suffering, when you're like, that is faith results because you realize you must trust something beyond yourself,
Well, that's actually one of my biggest arguments against atheism is that
which
is
is
faith
mm,
is so one of my arguments is uh, you practice faith every day. You have faith when you go to sleep that you're going to wake up in the morning. You have to have faith in if you have goals, you have to have faith in yourself that you can accomplish those goals because you don't have physical proof of it yet. Um, you have to practice
would
faith
you
every day.
would you say that faith in this context is kind of like trust?
Maybe trust. It's believing in something that has you don't have proof yet for, and you
Mm,
just yeah, I guess you could kind of say is trust. You trust that you're gonna wake up tomorrow, but you don't know for sure. You know, a meteor could
mm.
hit. You could die in your sleep. Something could happen, but you just trust that you're gonna wake up.
Yeah, I will say from my personal experience, I never trusted anything. I was like being raised atheist. I think you can't trust anything other than
Physical
you just don't.
proof.
There's nothing
Yeah.
beyond you. There's nothing beyond physical proof. Um, and it was only in the last couple of years that I started tentatively trying to trust that there was something beyond me,
Mm.
all of us, helping us, supporting us, loving us. I don't know. Um, but when you know it's for whatever reason, maybe because there's something out there, or maybe because trust is so important to us psychologically, but
Mhm.
like everything in my life just goes better, you know. And I've stopped trying to, you know, rapidly control outcomes, and I take more of a posture as just being like, it's gonna take care of itself. You know, God's gonna take care of it. Like it's, I don't know, things are gonna go the way things are gonna go. And you know, we control so little. Those of us who live with the illusion that we control a lot are just completely deluding ourselves. In releasing that has enabled me to actually benefit from letting other things, other forces take the wheel, whatever they are. Maybe there's no God involved, but like they're better at it than I am.
Mhm.
They're just better at it than I am. And sometimes people say things like things just work out. They do sometimes. I mean, sometimes they go horribly, you know. But when they do, when I experience something as it's going horribly, I know that that's my own perception.
Mhm.
And I use that as an opportunity to get curious of, you know, I usually don't think things are going horribly. They're just going. And
Yeah, yeah.
I can think or feel about that how I choose.
No,
Um,
that's exactly it. I think it's that let go and let God, uh,
yes.
saying, and then also living imperturbably, imperturbab
Mm,
imperturbably, where you're not it's a Buddhist approach, a Zen Buddhist approach where you don't get super excited about good things and you don't get super down about bad things. You live in uh this middle
mm.
ground. And that's exactly that mindset you can which is something I wanted to ask you about this choice, this free will choice. We in those moments, I think you do have a choice. You can choose to uh, be victimized by bad, your you're calling it bad circumstance, or you can choose uh, otherwise.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a part of that pause and curiosity that I am trying to invite people into. You know, we in intellectual space, we don't control who we've been or what we believe.
Mhm.
And we don't even control necessarily we don't control what we believe in this present moment. We don't. Like everything just has happened to now. Um, but what we do control is how we relate to all that going forward, right? Like what we do control is, all right, am I going to try to grow from here? Am I going to try to be open from here? Am I going to try to interpret things a certain way from here? You know, and if I'm curious about myself and I look back and I realize that I have habits of interpreting life, say, for example, as if I'm the victim, in this moment, I can decide moving forward to try something else, see what happens. Um, so we don't have agency necessarily about what's been or about what we believe, but we do have agency about how we want to interpret, you know, and how we want to start to try to think moving forward. Change takes time.
I Yeah, I would suggest to build that. For me, it was through meditation, but I think
Mm,
what you're speaking of is just being having this presence, awareness, presence, that you're aware of every moment of how you can choose to react or respond.
I think so. I have a personal confession, which is that I don't really understand what it's like to not have that. I've had a lot
What
of
do you mean?
conversations with
What do you?
friends and professionals about this. Like, I don't, when people say things like what you just said,
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't feel resonance with the idea that I might not intentionally choose my thinking or my actions in any moment. Um, and I don't know, maybe that just, I'm missing something. But I go through life kind of always intentionally choosing. Um,
Uh,
and I just, I don't know if I'm missing something, you know? Like, a lot of mindfulness is about, like, being present in the moment and trying to pause and be intentional and choose.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
but I always have that.
No, some people don't.
Is that nuts? It's like, I
Yeah, some
um,
people don't. They live their entire lives just not, they don't have that level of self-awareness. They're like always in, maybe it's a trauma response, maybe it's triggers, or um, they live in a
yeah,
perpetual state of reaction and not responding.
I'm saying that I'm the opposite.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I I I don't know what it's like to be on autopilot
Yeah,
always
yeah.
just in a and I don't know. I think something crazy fortunate for me. I don't know how common or uncommon this is, but I got through childhood without developing um, negative beliefs about myself or having shame. And there's very little in my psyche that I'm protecting myself from in that way. You
Mm-hmm,
know, and I don't have that protective reactivity. Um, and I actually only really learned about its existence through working not with somebody as my therapist, but supporting him professionally with his writing,
mm-hmm,
um, with a therapist who like works on this for a living, and
mm-hmm,
then making some friends and having a romantic partner who like have all this reactivity that they're learning to get past, and
mm-hmm.
it's sort of tied to their childhood and their
I think sometimes it's not just childhood. I think it's also, some people are in a, just a state of survival. You know, like
yeah.
you work, you pay the bills, you go to sleep. You
Mm.
work, you pay the bills, you go to sleep. You live for the weekend. You party on the
Yeah.
weekend. You work, you go to. It's the same thing over and over. So that's all they know.
Yeah, but I do think that when that exists, that too is its own kind of the distractedness is a it's a defense, you know.
Mm,
I think I wonder sometimes, you know, I talk about so my I don't have a lot of I don't carry a lot of woundedness or pain in my social relationships or my personal relationship, but I was always deeply I carry a lot of pain about the absurdity of the universe and atheism and that so that was a lot of my struggle, and I had a lot of physical health issues too. But um, you know, so getting out of childhood shame free, I didn't get out of with baggage free.
mm,
um, I didn't get out baggage free, and I also I think you know I started having these. I had this awareness about existence being potentially meaningless. Right, I had this awareness of death, and I was terrified. Um, and I think maybe I became hyper intentional about being in the present moment. And I think my family dynamics were a part of this too. But um, I think I got really intensely introspective
mm,
and strategic. and my personality is part of this too. I am an INTJ, but like, and an Enneagram 3. So yeah, so I think we're all, I don't, all I'm saying is it's so, we often talk about commonalities in human experience, and that's amazing, but we can't get outside our own experience, and we're all formed by what we've been through. Like I don't really resonate with this idea of reactivity. I have no idea why. I have some guesses, and we're all just like, I don't know. I've only ever just done the best as myself,
Mm-hmm.
and that's how we all are. And it's so important to try to find out what it's like to be other people.
Stephanie, I want to ask you one last question before I move on to
Okay.
the conclusion of this podcast.
All right.
Is there anything that you're wrestling with at the moment?
Is there? I laugh just because I think it's a great question. I just laughed because I'm like, always tons of things. I mean, I try to live with all of my beliefs always as hypotheses in revision. So in a sense, I'm working on revising everything all the time. And in terms of anything that's feeling unsettled that I personally am wrangling with, I mean, to be honest with you, this exploration of faith as trust, as what if there's beyond, is the most peaceful and joyful I've ever been. I feel solid. I've got my health mostly figured out. I have found things in the world that feel like home. I'm in a season of like, I'm doing good. But I am exploring. I'm on the way spiritually. I have no idea.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it doesn't feel like a wrestle anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It feels like a dance, maybe.
Mm.
So I'm curious, but I have released the need and the desperation around my questions. And I am inviting what comes. I think that's it.
I just wanted to say I think I'm in the in between stage right now. I'm not like hardcore wrestling, but I'm maybe hugging.
Sumo wrestling. It's kind of like hugging.
Or Tai Chi. Tai
Jujitsu.
Chi.
Okay, there
It's
you go.
like you're not like you're just there doing the motions, but you're not like I have to find the answers. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same way. I always lead with my curiosity, and I take everything with a grain of salt, I like to say.
Mm-hmm.
Like I don't ever reach a point where I'm like, this is it. Like I found the answers. Um, and I actually recently took the Myers test as well, and I was caught in between. I was caught in between INTP and
INFP.
FP. Yeah,
I had a
there
feeling.
was like two. Well, because when I went and looked through because a lot of people don't know the Myers-Briggs test was actually an extension of Carl Jung's personality types, and they
Mm-hmm.
expanded upon it. Um, but my answers for T and F were almost balanced, but there was just one
Mm.
more that was for T. Um,
It's really, to me, um, the personality typing test. I find the Myers-Briggs heuristic quite useful,
mhm,
and it's another tool that helps me try to wrap my head around what it's like to be other people.
mhm, mhm,
I used to be really offended when people were late for stuff, and then I realized, oh, they're just peas. Like, it's fine. You know, they don't see
I
being
was
on
late
time as a
today.
symbol of love, you know? Yeah. And I was chill about it. I was hanging with my dogs. Um, and so, um, that said, I think, in answering the questions is always tricky because the words are hard to pick and what are they looking for?
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it's okay with these things to be in the middle or to just read about the different types and be like, oh yeah, that one feels more me, you know?
It's like,
Um,
yeah, I have a whole book about it, and I'm like in the middle, I feel like, because my family
mhm,
tells me I'm kind of like I have a cold love, which doesn't resonate with Fs. They're more
mm.
empathetic, but my entire family says you're the type of person that has that cold love. And it's like, what
No,
does that mean?
I don't know. I mean, I know a lot of I'm a T, and I think
Yeah.
I'm pretty warm.
Okay.
Um, I maybe they're used to like a more outgoing thing, and that's actually your sort of inner quietude. You know, I think you can be a T and be very warm, and I think you can be an F and you can be a bit of a, you know. So,
Mm,
um, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if you were an F or a T. You know, I don't. Do you trust your instincts? Or do you need to analyze them for a bunch after?
mm,
I think that's kind of the big deciding line between an F and a T.
okay, that's a good way.
You know, do you trust your feelings or do you need to come up with a bunch of rational justifications post hoc?
Okay, I thought that's more intuitive though, right?
Oh, the N. Well,
Yeah,
you mean the N or the
yeah,
no? So that the N and the
sensing.
S is a little bit more like, from my understanding, S's tend to always want to like talk about practical details. I can't talk to S's. Forgive me if you're an S in the audience. No knock against you. This is just about who I am. But like an S will be like, how was the day? How was like, what did you do today? Did you watch the
Uh,
sports? What did the president talk about? What are the facts of today? And an N would more want to like abstractly theorize around it, you know?
uh,
And are curious more a little bit about the whys.
mm.
I talk with N's very easily, but it's literally like I just don't know how to do the S thing. I just don't. Um, yeah, and it's very easy
There's
for me to
actually
spot
a
on.
compatibility chart for that as well, and they
Yeah,
say if you don't align with the middle two, the
yeah.
at least one of them, then it's hard. It's like forced compatibility.
Oh, yeah. I dated an S once. We didn't talk for like 9 months. True story.
Um,
Anyway, shall we?
yeah,
Shall we wrap this up? I could talk about Myers Briggs forever, but my dog's got to poop. So,
yeah. This is a long podcast.
well, thank you.
But yeah, I think I lead more with my gut feeling about things. Um,
If I had to guess from this 1 hour and 57 minutes of chatting with you, I would guess that you were a bit more of an F.
mhm.
But you're very intellectually, I mean, there's no but there. I know most of the brilliant people I know are Fs. Like, it's not a matter of being smarter, just, you know, whether you, yeah, whether you trust and lean into your emotions
Mm.
rather than away. Maybe.
All right, these final questions can be rapid fire if you like. I know you gotta take your dogs to go poop.
No,
Or
we're good. I mean, they're sleeping, but it's got to happen soon.
okay. Or you can elaborate on them. My first
Sure.
question is, what is your favorite compliment that someone has given you?
It's very hard to think of these things in the moment. This is not the first time I've been asked this question. Uh, I'll share the most memorable comment somebody gave me, which was um, 15 years ago. Somebody told me that I was a force for liberation and joy. And I wrote it on my jeans. And then I cut it out and I still have it.
You still
But
have
that's
it?
what
Oh, wow.
it's in my mom's house, I think, in storage. But actually, I don't know. I've moved a lot. I've still got it somewhere. A force for liberation and joy. That's what I would like to be. So that was fun.
What does that mean to you? Like to be a force of liberation and joy?
Yeah, I mean, we all choose what we're going to do with our wild and precious lives. We have that privilege today. And but you know, even if we didn't have this abounding privilege where you got to like pick your own professional path, we all get to choose who we are in any moment of any day. And for me, being a force for liberation and joy means living, doing things like writing books, but also, like I said at the beginning of this podcast, like being alongside my neighbors in a way that is luminous, radiant, you know, that helps
Peaceful.
people feel peaceful and lighter and joyful. Like I know everybody at the supermarket and what's going on in their lives. And, you know,
That's that community. Yeah.
yeah. And I'm just like, well, and also because I'm intellectually vulnerable, I don't
Uh,
see a lot of people as
the
threats to me. I see
judgment.
everybody as
Yeah.
I see everybody as like a beautiful opportunity to learn. Yeah. Like I like some more than others, but I'm super duper friendly with everybody.
Yeah.
And I think, I don't know.
No, that's
We all just got to choose, and that's what I choose.
I love that. Something I strive for is a simple life. Um, because to me, a simple life is a peaceful life. You know, you could still be ambitious and have goals and stuff, but at your core, you're living a simple and peaceful life. And that just reminded me of a coworker I used to have that every time he seen somebody walk into the store and if they had blue hair, he immediately judged them like, "Oh, look at this woke ass sheep
Mhm.
herder." I'm just like, you don't even know her. Like, she could just like blue and painted her hair blue, and you're
Yeah, or like could have
immediately
cancer and is dyeing her hair for the last week. Like you
something you
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
Yeah.
And usually there's deep suffering under all of it,
Mm,
right? So, um, yeah,
yeah.
that's humans be humans.
What is something you have been told that you will never forget?
Mm, gosh, so much, like as wisdom, like a fact, so much. I don't know.
I would just say, what's the first thing that comes to your mind?
My mind keeps going. So maybe it's not a specific thing so much as a bunch of things. When I was trying to be a Christian, I was living in the south of France,
Mm.
um, and I was a part of this really beautiful church community that had like no resources. You know, it's nowadays like churches are so produced and
Oh yeah, there's a big
but the,
one being built uh, right down my street. They have this whole construction zone, like expanding, expanding
Mhm.
or whatever.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
they got the surround sound and the glass cages for the guitar for the drums. Like you got to whatever the drums.
yeah.
Um, and our church like had no money. We rented a room in a shared building on Sundays and a couple of evenings, every other Sunday or something like that, and cleaned it ourselves, vacuumed after
Mm.
service, that kind of thing, and had a coffee service, and it was really, really terrible. But there was like a WhatsApp group,
Mm.
and everybody was looking for housing for immigrants and
Mm.
that kind of stuff. And I witnessed so much faith and hope and love in that community. And I learned some explicit things about like a retelling of the men's story that I thought was really cool. That's actually the first thing I thought of when you brought that up. Following the light to a new way home is what he said about the wise men.
Mm.
And that really stuck with me. I want to follow the light on a new way home. Interestingly enough, I'm revisiting the idea of Christ as light in a book I'm reading right now called The Universal Christ by Richard Rohr.
Mm.
But I don't know that I thought, well, I have 3 piercings right here and they're for the 3 wise men because of that analogy. So maybe that's why I thought of it.
3 wise men.
Yeah.
What are the toughest demons, if you have any, that you're fighting right now?
I think the biggest pain that I fought for most of my life and am continuing to fight is loneliness.
Really?
And I've always been very, very alone. For a lot of reasons, that early atheism, and that's continued my whole life. And then I traveled so much. I've moved so many times. I've lived in 10 or 12 different major cities in places where people are always moving, university towns. And it's hard. Humans are social beings. We're not supposed to be alone. It's really
Mm-hmm.
hard to get through life when you're alone. And it requires a lot of willpower. And then when I landed in North Carolina, I had a really serious pain condition. I couldn't really leave my house ever. So
Mm.
I'm better now. I worked it out using intellectual vulnerability. But yeah, I, it's important. It's connection is so important. And I think connection with people across all domains of intimacy, you can be surrounded by people and still feel alone, right? So
Oh
being able to
yeah.
be authentically yourself and feel safe with friends, partners. I got dogs now,
Dogs are great
communities.
for
Dogs are
for
great.
loneliness.
And yeah,
I've felt it too. I
yeah.
felt that loneliness.
Sometimes I wonder if my dogs are God. They're
Maybe.
pure attention. They just want to love and be loved. Sometimes I look at them, I'm like, are you God? They're like, Mom, we are dogs. I'm like, are you sure?
God's gift.
Yeah. So that's good. I think loneliness, and I'm always looking at the march of time and our
Really.
contingency and death. And oh, yeah, I've got a ticker right here. So it's counting
Just
down. I don't know when my end
it's
is,
like
but
that movie with Justin Timberlake. Have you ever seen it? They have
no.
there's a movie where people are given um
Oh,
uh,
they're death days.
death days, and you could buy time, and it's with Justin
Wow.
Timberlake, and there's like a whole monopoly corporation that controls it, and they could live forever. And
Wow.
yeah,
That's
as
wild.
soon as you can see your clock, and when it hits zero, you just fall to the ground and die.
That's wild.
Yeah.
What a concept. I'm never gonna watch that for sure. But yeah, I'm always aware, and trying to optimize. If you or anybody ends up listening to my reading my book or whatever, it's all about optimizing. I optimize because I'm like, well, we're all gonna be dead someday.
Mm,
Um, and I know that, but yeah, so but I've released my desperation about that.
mm.
So yeah, those are the things that I sit with.
What does an optimal life look like for you?
That's so funny. I went on a date once, with a really perceptive guy, and he was like, "Stephanie, I wish for you an unoptimized life."
Uh,
Um, to optimize is to make the most of a resource, to make the
yeah.
most of time, but then what are you optimizing for? And so I try not to optimize as much, but I know that trying not to optimize as much is a way to optimize.
No, that's exactly what talking about the Myers-Briggs, the P versus J. My
Mm,
sister had visited me um for like a 3-day vacation. Um and she was just hardcore like this time we can do this time we can do that. I was like, I'm like, so you don't got no time just to like like uh life happens,
chill,
like life
yeah.
happens. um I get that there's a time and place to like plan things, uh but sometimes I'm just like, life is easier for me when I just go with the flow and not
Yeah.
over optimize all the time.
Yeah, and I mean, and I don't wanna try to I don't want to obsessively control outcomes because that didn't work out for me, I didn't like it,
Mhm.
but I do like to make things better, if there's
Yeah.
something that I would like to be better, I'm gonna try to figure out how to do it. So far, I've been quite good at it, but I don't have the same desperate edge around it that I used to, you know? So I think I'm in a pretty healthy place with all that.
I mean, since you're not on social media, I was gonna say for anybody listening, there's a way you can, and I actually found it very helpful for distraction purposes and your phone. There's a way to shortcut on the iPhones, probably Androids as well. You can switch your phone to grayscale, and when it's on
Mm,
grayscale, it's uninteresting.
mm,
Something in your brain is just like, I don't care to go
interesting.
on it as much. So my screen
Yeah,
time has been reduced a lot since then.
I like that. Yeah, I gotta say, getting off social media has been a huge piece of my newfound peace and joy. It's wonderful.
Hmm. Stephanie, what is your biggest regret, if you have any?
I don't have a lot of moments in my life where I feel like I did harm, but there are some, and I regret those. I regret the times in which I have caused harm. Other than that, I can't regret anything, you know? Who's to say that if I'd have done differently, things would be better right now? Um, and I have never said yes to an opportunity that I wanted, or not said yes. I've never said no to a dream or whatever, So the only things that I really regret are times in which I've caused harm to others.
Mm,
Otherwise, I don't know. I'm exactly where I am, and I'm cool with
where
that.
you're supposed to be.
Maybe. I don't know. It is what it is.
Who or what has made the biggest impact in your life?
Um, oh, I mean, whatever. My mom is dope. Obviously, she's very cool. She's been very helpful. This most surprising, great impact in my life has been my dogs. I was pretty anti dog for many
Really?
years. I was against. I was like, our culture idolatrizes dogs. We fold dogs into our identity. They're filthy. They're expensive. We just pay for them so they can love us, and we don't have to love people. Like that was my whole. Like I had a whole speech about dogs. Um, but then I happen to think that things we resist present opportunities for growth. And
Oh
when
yeah,
an opportunity,
100%.
oh yeah, when an opportunity came along, there was a kind of dog that I liked, a doodle. And when an opportunity came along, like it just felt right. And this was another one of those things in my life where I just kind of kept saying yes to the stuff that felt like home.
Mm.
And I got these two little fuzzy beings, and they're the best decision I've ever made.
I
So,
was actually very similar. I would always say dogs are just a liability. Like
mm-hmm.
you can't travel. You have to figure out travel arrangements. You have
That is
to, if
true.
you have a big dog, you have to pick up dinosaur craps. And
I got 2 big dogs. I got 2 big
so you
puppies. I
gotta.
pick up big poop like 10 times a day.
I used to
10.
have a big uh I forget, Newfoundland. They get up to maximum 200 pounds. So his poops were literally like you gotta use two hands. You gotta. But now I have a corgi, and I think corgis
Aw.
are like perfect size dogs. They're not too big.
Yeah,
They're
they're
not too
good.
tiny like Chihuahuas. Um, but yeah, now I love dogs. So.
All right. How are we doing on these rapid
we
fire,
got
very many end of the thing questions?
we got three more.
Okay. I got a coffee date in 20 minutes. So,
Oh shit! Tell him you're gonna be late.
with a friend. With a friend.
Tell him or her you're
No,
gonna be late.
let's wrap this up in 20 minutes.
If you had the chance to go back and tell one thing to your younger self, what would you say?
Chill out. It's gonna be fine.
Stop planning everything.
So, yeah, just you don't need to control so much. Live with a little bit of trust. Live with a little bit of trust that if you let go control, things are going to be okay. Yep.
If you had unlimited time and money, what would you be doing with your life?
Not dying ever. Getting that immortal life. So I could have more time and money, right? Isn't that the answer to everything?
You would want to be immortal?
I was being ironic. I mean, unless I knew what happened after we died, I don't know. What would I do? Well, I would share the money. And I would do exactly with my time what I'm doing right now. Yeah. Just working most of the time to try to help people find peace and wisdom, and hanging out with my dogs, going dancing, hanging out with my boyfriend.
You dance?
Traveling a little bit. I do. Yeah, I almost quit my PhD to dance full time.
Really?
Yeah, to teach and to travel and perform. I do salsa.
Oh,
Do salsa.
dancing is very
bachata.
healing.
I think so. It's part of my spirituality, I think.
Yeah, I always tell people who are so like it seems like they have a stick up their ass all the time. Like, have you ever tried dancing? Because
Great.
maybe that'll
So
get your
far,
stick out of your ass.
maybe. I know a ton of people who work so hard to try to make an effort in this or impact in this domain or that domain or whatever. But man, like people who organize and promote dance parties, like salsa dancing, they bring so much joy to hundreds of people in a night. Like you just stand there and you look and everybody's smiling. It's so great. Like what a beautiful way. What a beautiful way to lighten the world.
Yeah, and just let loose.
Yeah.
Let all those emotions out and feelings.
Connect
Yeah.
and move. Yeah. Good.
Stephanie, what is one thing you'd like to share with the world that you think would resonate with them right now?
You, like every other being on this planet, belong as you are. You are okay. I'm okay. And maybe things are going to be okay. That is the idea that I think is probably most important to communicate to most people. In terms of what I personally have to offer, my whole shtick about intellectual vulnerability and curiosity, so I won't rehash it. I think that's part of, coming home to ourselves. But I would just encourage people, like if there's a source of suffering in your life, if you don't feel at home, if you don't have energy, if you're not well, just get curious about why. And then I think you can probably work on it. And if you can't optimize, if you can't fix your circumstances, you can change your relationship with them. So you welcome them. I really do believe that we can live healthfully and lovingly and peacefully and joyfully. And if we're not there now, like, we're on the way. You can find your way. I do believe that.
Thank you, Stephanie.
Thank you.